ADA Design and Build, where we specialize in ADA construction. Today we're going to be debunking another myth. This one is critically important because I hear this on a daily basis. My name is Tony Gouchard. I'm the founder and principal with ACR. Today with us we have our team member Jason, who is our CASP inspector. Jason's CASP number again is down in the 400s, so that means that he's been doing this for quite a while. In addition to that, Jason is a DSA inspector who inspects concrete ramps and railings, things of that nature for public schools as a DSA inspector, which gives him an additional credential. So he's at the top of the list as your CASP inspector, which is why he works well for us. We surround ourselves with the highest quality principals that are out there. So today's topic is going to be about the myth of grandfathering. And clients come to us all the time where they've heard from their CASP inspector and they've heard from their attorney, so, we're grandfathered in, we don't have to worry about it. Our building was built in 1940. Well, what I'm finding is that if you read the ADA says that there is no such thing as grandfathering. And they come in to say, well, since 1990, the law was put into place. I think the code took a year to write or whatever, so it was kind of enforced around 91. And then the lawsuits have erupted. And then, so there really isn't any grandfathering. If you pay attention to the intent of the law, the intent is to bring these properties that are open to the public, bring them compliant, get rid of the barriers so that disabled people can navigate in for goods and services that you provide. So, a lot of people think that these lawsuits are frivolous, but a lot of them are just, there is a certain percentage that needs to be ADA compliant so that it is accessible for the disabled persons. Now, that's the ADA side. And what I'm finding is that some people, or the CASP inspector or the attorney, always wants to do the best job for their client. So they'll find information and they'll state, it says, well, the property was built in 1950 and the property was compliant in 1950 and you haven't touched it, no alterations, then you don't have to do a thing. And then the attorney or the CASP inspector will say, well, you can always argue that, but there's the key. How much does it cost to argue, right? So arguing that particular position could cost you 15 grand and you may not win. You're going to be paying for your attorney fees, you're going to be paying for the other side's attorney fees. So they're more than happy that you just keep defending this position and get this thing up to 25, 30K. And so then you settle, and then all of a sudden you haven't made any corrections. The next law firm that comes to sue you, they don't know what your position is. They file the lawsuit. Once the lawsuit has been filed, then the negotiation starts again. So very rarely are you going to get out of that second lawsuit without paying something. It could be 5 to 10K defending that position again when you could have made the corrections. But when the CASP inspector or the attorney happens to say, you were compliant in 1950, as long as you haven't touched it, then you don't need to make this. Well, that's, in my opinion, that's still a gray area, because here's something to throw at it. Since 1950, have you ever seal coated the parking lot or restriped it? I can guarantee you in 50 or 60 years, that has been done. So that triggers an alteration. So if the property has been altered, you put up a sign or you've done anything on the interior, that triggers current compliance. So the attorneys that are on the plaintiff side filing these lawsuits can very easily go down to building and safety and check the permit process and say, oh gosh, 1995, you put in new glazing for a front storage, alteration. So I'm not a big fan of claiming that. Again, my opinion, if you're caught up in a lawsuit, become compliant. We'll help you with it all the way through and keep you out of these future lawsuits. But this is kind of a gray area between grandfathering and some of the positions in California that says, well, you were locked in and so date and no alterations. What are you seeing that's realistic out there in the field?
Well, like you said, before 1991, there were no accessibility codes. The ADA states in the federal code of regulations that all businesses, all properties, all Title III accommodations, public accommodations, must be brought into compliance with the current standards. And this was in 1991, so it was brought into compliance with the 1991 standards. Now you must be brought into compliance with, at minimum, the 2010 ADA standards. But once you trigger an alteration, like you said, now California Building Code comes into play. So you're dealing with that. There is no grandfather clause with ADA. If there was, none of these lawsuits would ever happen. Every building, well, I can't say every building, but 90% of the buildings I've inspected were built to code when they were built. They were inspected, they were signed off by a civil engineer, by a city inspector, by everybody that needed to sign them off. It doesn't mean that they comply with the current accessibility standards, and that's where these lawsuits happen. And the lawsuits that you'll face are based on current codes always, and all of this is more than providing accessibility. It's become about avoiding lawsuits. That's what it's become. And so now you've got these serial filers. They know the standards, they know the codes as well as you and I do. And they're going out there and filing based on the current standards. And a grandfather clause argument just doesn't hold up anymore.
I would agree 100% on that. One of the things that I'm seeing with the serial plaintiffs that are filing these lawsuits is that it used to be back in the old day that they would, the main allegation would be you don't have a van accessible parking stall. Mm-hmm. So now the owners come out and they put in a van accessible parking stall. But the guys who are filing these lawsuits are sharp. I mean, they're current with the code. So once you fix the exterior, then they're hitting you up for, detectable warning dome, or they're hitting you up for a curb ramp or a railing. Once you fix those and you're signed off, in my opinion, with a CASP reinspection that says everything is correct, they're going on the interior. So now these guys are coming up and they're checking the door pressure on your entry doors. So now you got the door pressure, you go inside, do they have an ADA table? Do you have your service counter at the right height? Is your restroom compliant? Now, a lot of clients are being told by some that just get rid of your restroom. Put a sign on it that says, hey, it's not accessible. The problem with that is when that restroom or that restaurant was originally built, it went through planning department. Planning department states that in order for you to receive your approved set of plans, you have a restroom. So it's very difficult just to eliminate that restroom when planning department made it a requirement in 1980 or 1970. So you really should go back to planning, and I don't think you'll be successful that they're going to require that restroom remain. But be very careful where you're getting your guidance, because you may satisfy ADA compliance, but you may be treading on building and safety, California code, and you may be treading on planning department in your specific area. I recently had a client that attempted to do that in a gas station, and he was told by his attorney just to put a sign up, employees only. Problem with that in his particular area, there was something new to me, is that if a gas station is within a quarter of a mile of a freeway, it has to have a restroom. So he came back with that language after he put that sign on there and found that information. So he went through the effort of remodeling his restroom. It was required by planning department. So make sure that when you're traveling down just ADA compliance, that you're also not treading on planning department and building and safety, because that can throw up a whole nother red flag.
Yeah.
So again, if you're looking